And what we have here is a collection of Japanese artifacts from World War II. The Japanese families lived nearby. The Kajiro family was at the corner of 7th Avenue and Steveston Highway. We only had two neighbors. One was the Kajiro family in Lumpoy, and the rest was just all farmland. And when they were evacuated, they left their most important possessions with my mother and father. And they kept the house was all boarded up. And my dad kept boarding it up because vandals kept breaking in and stealing stuff. And eventually he moved all of the furniture over into his house. And we have a lot of letters back and forth as my parents sold the goods for the Kajiro family. And so after the war, some of the things still remained, and we'll see them as we go through exactly what it was that was left behind. Most of this stuff, of course, was sold. The custodian would have sold it and wouldn't have given them much money, so they got a little bit more money by my mother and father selling this stuff. I don't know who all the artifacts are from, but I do know which ones are from Kajiros. The Kajiro family just lived across the street, and as I said before, my dad kept the place boarded up and eventually moved a lot of the stuff into our house. We have a lot of artifacts. I've got a lot of photographs. I've written up a lot of the history. Aunt Jessie worked at the Japanese school. Mr. Kajiro was the principal of the Japanese school. When it was a language, I'm getting ahead of myself. The Japanese school was built around 1909, and it taught everything. And the teachers in that taught English was Miss Butcher and Mrs. Chilton, and my grandmother, Bessie Steves, and second cousin, Edith Steves. And they're in the photograph, in this photograph right here, the four women that taught at the Japanese school. That was around 1909, 1910. Then in 1926, Aunt Jessie taught in Lord Byng's school when the Japanese school became part of Lord Byng's school. And this is Aunt Jessie and all the students at the school. That's Aunt Jessie, yeah. And this album is, to a large extent, are photographs from Aunt Jessie of all the teachers at the school and the students. There's the school. There's a picture of the office. They had the school on one side at number 1 and Chatham Street. The school was at the corner of number 1 and Chatham on the east side of number 1 road. Then next to it was an office, and it was the office of the school principal and the Japanese Fishermen's Benevolent Association. And then on the other side was the Japanese hospital. And my grandparents, as you notice, taught at the Japanese school. They were active in the Japanese community, and my dad was actually born in the Japanese hospital in 1899. There's a small photograph there showing the Japanese kids that I guess Aunt Jessie brought them to visit our house on our front porch. Anyway, in World War II, when they evacuated the Japanese, they took away the leaders. They came in without warning and arrested 3 people. Most of them were in that building there. Mr. Kajiro was in his office, and the head of the Japanese Fishermen's Benevolent Association, and one other. And they were arrested and taken away. And this is one of the letters that was sent to my father from Mr. Kajiro. And it says, prisoner of war mail and examined by censor. There's his name, that Fumio Kajiro. He wrote perfectly beautiful handwriting. they were totally English speaking, and yet they were they were regarded as enemy aliens. So these are just a few of the letters from Mr. Kajiro and Mrs. Kajiro to my mother and father, and some of the letters were to Aunt Ida from other Japanese families. Okay, on this table we've got some dishes. These are from Kajiros, from fine china, Japanese china, I guess, and some of their pots and various dishes. Some of these with chips on them were ones that we dug up on the waterfront as well. Mom and I found the original Steveston garbage dump from about 1890. It was at the foot of 7th Avenue. And we dug it up and we found quite a bit of Japanese dishes and pottery in it. Japanese flower pot, I think that probably came from Kajiros. These vases came from Aunt Ida, so I don't know whose they were, but definitely a type of Japanese pottery. And the flowers are all handmade cherry blossoms. This is just more dishes, some beautiful Japanese teacups, cups and saucers. I don't know if it was from Kajiros or one of the other families. This is one we dug. You can see the chips are out of it, but it's a beautiful piece of pottery. These are all sake bottles from before the war. We dug one up in our yard, and we dug those up along the waterfront in different locations. A couple more Japanese boxes here with designs on them. This is just a collection of all the books we've got that explains these things. Another vase from World War II that belonged to one of the families. Okay, we've got more Japanese dishes from World War II. I don't know who they belong to. This one's interesting. I don't know whether it's supposed to be this way because the flowers are growing upwards, but it looks like it's supposed to be a vase that way, and the flowers would be upside down. So I don't even know what it is. So I'm using it as a stand to hold a dish, but I don't know what it is. And this is actually paper folding. Believe it or not, these are old fish labels, and the Japanese fishermen or the fisher women, they would actually make different things out of fishing labels. And this one's rather elaborate. Now this one is a little pad made out of fishing canning labels. This lot is a mixture of ages. This one's from a Japanese Canadian centennial in 1977, and I'm not sure the story behind this, whether that's a tablecloth or a couch cover like I've got it, but a beautiful Japanese design. Japanese trays, again, probably from World War II. That again, I don't know which families they're from. Here we've got a Buddha and some Japanese bottles. The bottles were some we dug in the waterfront. And these are sake warmers. You put sake in it. All have beautiful designs on them. Again, I don't know what families they're from, but they're just, and some are dug. This one here, for example, is a broken one that we dug up in the waterfront, but we kept it because of the designs on it. And the area where we dug, at the foot of 7th Avenue, we found the Steveston garbage dump, and it was there before the dike was built in 1907, because the dike is built right on top of it. So that one that's broken there could go back to 1900. Now these are a few more modern Japanese dolls that we've got along here. The little chest of drawers probably came from Kajiros. It's an old one. Okay, this one is an abacus, and that was given to my grandfather, Joseph Steves, from the owner of Omiya's store on Moncton Street. Probably 1920 or 1930, I would imagine that he got that. I don't know the history of this one. I think this is more recent. A little tea set. These ones here we found in the attic of the store at the corner of Moncton Street and First Avenue. The store was closed, and when we started the Steveston Museum post office, we had the post office in the store for a while. I definitely would be interested in knowing if anybody knows what these are for. I've got 4 or 5 boxes of them. These are some small ones, and these are the medium ones, and then I've got large ones. And I've got several boxes of these. I don't know what they're for. We found both this box full of stuff and the other stuff in the attic up in the rafters of an old store, and they'd been there since before World War II. But I don't know what they're for. Okay, some of these are Japanese and some aren't, but this is incense, and this is an incense burner. We dug that up in Steveston. These pieces were dug up, and they probably belong to Japanese families. I have no idea what these ones are or where they came from, but they were for burning incense. Okay, the main thing that the Kajiro family left behind was their very, very important set of Japanese dolls. And they had Japanese dolls that represent certain events and certain myths and stories in Japanese history. And these are all labeled because we had them on display when the Steveston Museum first opened, and Bonnie set up the display. And so they're all labeled. I guess Bonnie did the labeling, and there's an explanation of the Japanese dolls on the curtain. This is a set of Japanese dolls that goes back about 300 years. They had a tradition in Japan that every generation, the oldest girl would get a doll, and it would be added to the set. So the emperor at the very top with the strange thing on top of his head would have been the first doll that one of the girls in the family had. And then that girl, when she got married, maybe when she was 30 years old and had a child, would have got the empress for her daughter. And then her daughter would have got the next doll for her daughter all the way down the line. And I figured it out, if all these dolls were acquired once every 30 years, that the emperor is about 300 years old. And it's very rare to have a relatively complete set of these Japanese dolls. And this is the way they set the dolls up. with the emperor and empress at the top shelf, and then the next row and another row, and then the tables and dishes and pots and vases and things like that on the bottom rows. Okay, the artwork. This one here is one that I found in the house here. This is from Kubo's store, and this is the yardstick from Kubo's store. So that was a piece of Japanese artwork. They did their artwork quite often on I guess bamboo strips. And up above we have two different pieces of artwork of Mount Kilimanjaro. And I don't know what that one is at all. And the final one from the Kajiro family. This again is a painting belonging to Kajiros, and that's Mount Kilimanjaro. And that's an origami by the engineer on the Kairu Maru sailing ship that came to Richmond around about 2003 or 4. And I helped him, so he gave me that as a gift. And that covers it. I almost forgot. This is the first artifact I ever collected. I was 5 years old, and the Kajiro house was all boarded up, but vandals had broken in. And I was out playing in my yard one day, and my dog Pal was chewing on a stick, and I took it away from him, and it was a Japanese ceremonial sword. And I guess I've been collecting stuff ever since I was 5 years old. And this is another one as well. So I have two of them, but this one I found. This one I believe came from Aunt Ida's place. Yeah, well, thanks for watching. If you've got any information of any of the artifacts we showed, let me know.